Next, I would like to call upon the Honorable Founding Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Jamshed Bharucha, to address the gathering. Dr. Jamshed Bharucha, the Founding Vice Chancellor of Sai University, is the President Emeritus of Cooper Union, New York. His previous positions include Provost and Senior Vice President of Tufts University in Boston, Dean of the School of Arts and Science at Dartmouth College, Fellow for the Center of Advanced Study in Behavioral Sciences at Stanford University. He is also a visiting scholar at Harvard University, Stanford University, and Carnegie Mellon University. He has done extensive research in cognitive psychology and neuroscience, focusing on the cognitive and neural basis of the perception of music. He was also the editor of the interdisciplinary journal Music Perception. Dr. Bharucha is a Pride of America honoree accorded by the Carnegie Corporation of New York. He is the recipient of the Distinguished Achievement Award by the Alumni and Alumni of Vassar College and the Huntington Teaching Award by Dartmouth College. He completed his PhD in psychology at Harvard University. He is also an alumnus of Yale University, Vassar College, and the Trinity College of London. I'd now like to call upon the Honorable Founding Vice Chancellor to address the gathering.
So my field is cognitive neuroscience. It's trying to understand how the brain enables us to have cognition. Cognition includes how we think, how we use language, how we perceive the world, how we perceive other people, how we interact with other people, how we are able to learn, accumulate knowledge, apply knowledge, how we coordinate our bodies. Essentially, everything human beings do is because the brain is the way it is, or develops the way it does. And education is part of that developmental process. So my approach to education is quite different from traditional approaches because a lot is now known about how the brain learns or doesn't, and how it manifests its learning later on in life or doesn't. Most educational institutions historically are not designed based on how the brain learns. They're designed based on the opinions of the people who create those institutions and who design the curriculum and the learning process. But there's been a revolution, really, in our understanding of how children learn, how they learn at different ages, how they retain or don't retain what they've learned. And that revolution at this time in history in India coincides with a number of other very critical inflection points. Some have been touched upon by the Chancellor. As India is finding its place as a world leader, as the largest democracy, as the nation with the largest youth population in the world. India, now the 5th largest economy, soon to be the 3rd. There is a revolution in education, in my view, long, long overdue. But it's finally happening, where the University Grants Commission, abbreviated the UGC, which since soon after independence was the monolithic regulator of everything that happens in higher education in India, with the exception of a few institutions, elite institutions, that were given exemption or autonomy. As of maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, there was a realization at the UGC, again, long overdue, but better late than never, that the model they were following, the top-down, rigid regulation, was not serving the youth of this country, given the changes in the world. So that provides a window, an historic window in India now for new universities to come in, or existing universities to innovate and reform. And that's what's happening in the country. The University Grants Commission, in the last 5 years, has done an almost 180-degree turn in its policies, in its regulatory policies. In every new document that I read, I almost can't believe, because that's great. It's basically saying, for 75 years, we thought we knew what was good for every child in the country. Now, we realize we don't. There are thousands of educators in the country, teachers, faculty members and universities, founders of institutions, business people who are interested in funding education, philanthropists. There are lots of people, thousands of people who want to improve the system, who have ideas. And there may be 1,000 different ideas. So let 1,000 flowers bloom. Let institutions come up, chart their own course, experiment, innovate, let existing institutions do things differently that they might have tried to do before that were prevented from doing that. And this massive deregulation is extremely exciting. Now, one of the things that drove the UGC to this is a sense of a crisis in terms of the development of our youth compared to the rest of the world. And so if you look at these documents, they all talk about the gross enrollment ratio, which is the ratio of university-age people as a percentage of, the ratio of those enrolled in university as a percentage of those who are in university age bracket. And that bracket is defined by UNESCO. India and China were roughly at the same level in the early 60s. India is now 27%, China is already 54%. The percentage of university-age people who are actually enrolled in any way, even a single part-time course in a university. The Western nations are in the 65, 60, upper 60s range. And as we know, the world's economy has changed. It's an information economy. Even the information economy is going through a revolution with AI and ChatGPT. ChatGPT is turning education at all levels completely on its head. Okay? And I would, Chancellor said, I want to issue a wake-up call. Well, I want to issue a wake-up call to all the teachers and educators and parents. Don't assume that what ChatGPT cannot do today, it won't be able to do tomorrow. We have to reform as teachers, as educators. In many professions, the entry-level positions, routine kinds of jobs will be gone. They'll be gone. And I can tell you, I go to conferences all over India of educators. Everybody agrees with that. Which means we have to prepare our students to develop what I call higher level cognitive capacities, talents, or skills. That it will take a little bit longer for AI to do as well as we do. But those are skills that were not at all part of the traditional curriculum at any level. Even today, they're not. And they include creativity, coming up with new ideas, innovation. It includes critical thinking, which means being able to apply your analytic skills, gather evidence, synthesize the evidence, make judgments about the quality of information, and come up with some independent decisions about how to move forward, and getting our workforce used to facing new problems, many of which are undefined. So tackling issues where there is massive uncertainty. The people who are going to thrive are the people who come out of college feeling that they have been thrown enough problems that are undefined and uncertain, and are confident to be able to now help to frame those problems, deal with the uncertainty, and come up with solutions going forward. So most of the traditional education systems are based on high-stakes exams. And I know not everybody likes what I say about this, but I speak my mind. Most of the high school board exams should be reformed. It makes no sense. All of the evidence from my field, and there's a volume of evidence on how teenagers and adolescents learn. If you had to design a system to make sure that it's completely misaligned with how the brain learns, you would design a system in which 4 years of high school is spent just mugging up for those final exams at the end. Now, sorry, I know some of you are studying for the exams now. I went through them myself. But one has to face up when something doesn't work. And the evidence also shows you may get top marks in these exams, okay? If I were to give you that same exam 1 year later, or 5 years later, or 10 or 20 years later, let me ask some of the parents who've done very well, maybe in your board exams a long time back. If I gave you those same exams, how well would you do? Huh? 0. Most of you would fail, okay? So it's one of the most inefficient, ill-designed systems that one could ever. You would never design an engineering system to fail. You would never design a social society system to fail. So why do we design education to fail our students? Now, it's going to take a while to reform. People like me who are, maybe overtrained in certain areas, and we've taught. It's very easy for us to just teach in the old-fashioned ways. It's much easier for me to pull out my PowerPoints, and I know much more than the students, so I'll lecture them, tell them what I know, transfer knowledge. But the metaphor of transferring knowledge is over, because everybody now, all of our students have that little device that has all the knowledge that's ever been discovered, plus 100 times that amount of information that is hocus pocus, right? So a lot of garbage, a lot of noise. Our jobs as teachers become completely different, okay? It's more about developing the mind to analyze, to assess, to evaluate, synthesize, create new combinations of ideas, and that's what a liberal education means. That is really what a liberal education means. So we are trying to do that at Sai. And of course, you can't reach an ideal immediately. You take baby steps, and that's what we're doing. And fortunately, the regulatory system now is perfectly aligned with doing that. Now, what the students, it's well known, and there's a lot of data about it, is college students, when you interview them 10, 20, 30 years later and ask them about their most impactful experiences, I'm sorry, fellow faculty, among the top 3 are not what we learned in our courses. Okay? That's not what they remember. Honorable Chancellor, is that what you remember? No, I knew. There are other experiences, right? You're in with your peers. For adolescents, and undergraduates are still adolescents now. Your peer relationships and learnings are far more impactful. So creating an ecosystem out of the classroom also that promotes and inspires students to lift each other up in that way, rather than bringing each other down, which adolescents are also very good at doing. That's not an easy thing to do. But if you look at the top universities in the world, you'll find that there is this kind of sparking ecosystem, minute to minute, out of the classroom. Not all students are motivated to avail of that, but enough of them do, and they're the ones who will go on to be leaders and to succeed, no matter what their subject. So I'll leave. This is what we want to prepare our students for, is failure, okay? Things will happen. And by the way, another thing where there is consensus now among education leaders in India, every conference I go to in Delhi, complete consensus, that the generation of college students today will be the first generation that will have to completely retrain yourselves 3 or 4 times in your life. The degree you get now will not take you through your entire working life. So part of the undergraduate education is to understand that it's not just the facts and figures and the knowledge that you're learning now that's going to take you through your life. It's getting into the habit of learning new things, of struggling with new things, to enjoy that. And so that suddenly when the world changes or your job becomes obsolete because AI has taken over it, or if there's some startup company that's disrupted that industry, you're not knocked off your feet. You say, okay, I knew this was going to happen. Now I can retrain and do something else. And those will be the people who live full, productive, and meaningful lives. Thank you.